I was born in Dawsonville, Georgia, Dawson County in 1940. My dad, he sawmill. That's what he did. So my dad built a house over on Fowler Street, and we lived there as long as we was at home. We was raised up 8 kids at that location. So we've been here in Cobb County a long time. Well, the sawmill, he was just from place to place. About 1950, he went to Tifton, Georgia. Sawmill down there for a little while, and that didn't work out too good, so we came back. And he got into the grading business after that, and I don't believe there was anybody else in Ackworth that was in the grading business back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. If you got anything done, you had to go see my dad. Well, I've turned over a lot of ground in my time. I was working at the filling station for Jim Ship back then as a Gulf station on the north end of Ackworth. And he sent me out there with a Ford tractor to plow it up, and I stayed out there and plowed it up, just, 14, 15 years old. Plowed that thing up, drug it down, sowed it in grass, and that's one of the projects I remember about doing. And then I've graded out here at Dave's Chevrolet a long time back, and we built roads all over this county, Paulding County, Bartow County, cleared land from Cartersville to Dallas. They were all dirt back in the 50s. I think there were some paved streets then, but the majority of the streets were dirt, and we probably didn't have any paved roads until somewhere around 1960. Over on my side of town, on the north side of town, on the back side of the railroad track. Now, these other streets over here, some of those were paved, but most all the roads were still dirt. But they had begun, in '64, they had begun to start getting all the roads paved. Mr. Ernest Barrett was the commissioner then, and his priority, I think, was getting every road in Cobb County paved, and he pretty much did that. A family type deal. I had 2 brothers that ran the equipment. We hired folks to work for us, and we had, at one time we had several pieces of equipment. We had 2 of those big old TS-24 pans and 2 D8 Caterpillars and 3 front end loaders and a track hole and dump trucks and low boys and all that. So that was on up towards the 1980s. Mm-hmm. I had been a volunteer fireman from about 1957, 56, somewhere in that range. Yeah, I was very young, and the reason they let me on was because I was big and stout and heavy and could drag that hose. Mm-hmm. So J.C. Jolly was the volunteer fire chief, mm-hmm. and he kind of liked my skills because I could drive trucks and do things like that, and I could work on the fire trucks and all that. I would come down here and, clean the trucks and everything up at night and hang out when we'd have fire meetings and all that. And then as time went along, from being a volunteer fireman, the county voted in the fire districts in March of 1964, and they hired 5 people besides the chief. J.C. Jolly they hired him as the chief, and they told him to get 5 people, and he was one of my first choices that he selected. We had 6 people to start with in the fire district days. We had 3 on each shift. You work every other day. No holidays, no sick leave days, no time off. You worked every other day, and if somebody was sick and couldn't come to work, you'd work a double shift. So that meant you worked 3 days in a row before you got off again. Well, when I first started off, we had a 1955 Ford F-750 with a 500-gallon pumper on it. Had 300 gallons of water it carried with it. And then we had a 1930 model Hal. It had a 1,500 gallon a minute pump on it, but it was slow and didn't have no brakes on it much and all that stuff. So, but I worked on the trucks all the time from the time we went to work in the fire district days up until I think about 72, and they hired this mechanic for the county. And then I quit working on them after that. I progressed along the ladder from being just a fireman. I got to be a lieutenant in 1966. Then in 1967, I believe it was, I made captain. And then I stayed a captain from then until 1978. And I made battalion chief in 1978. And I was a battalion chief for 17 years. I left as a battalion chief, retired. Well, they just ain't no place like it. I've been everywhere. I've been to Alaska, I've been to Canada, I've been to the Great Slave Lake, all those places, and I was always glad to get home.